thrilled to have you here for Scaling in Denver Beyond Ideation. We've got a great discussion for all of you today. I'm Kay Henze. I'm the CEO of the Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network, affectionately known as Ben Colorado. So it's pretty fun in the Zoom world when I show up as Ben. And then I change my name. So, we exist to work with scale-up entrepreneurs to help them overcome their challenges, grow their businesses, and through that, elevate our communities and be a force for good in the Colorado economy. So I'm joined today by recent graduates of a program called the Denver Scale-Up Network, which we do in partnership with the Denver Office of Economic Development. Michael was just here. There's Michael. So Michael is our partner kind of in that program. So I do want to just thank our sponsors of Denver Startup Week for enabling us all to be together today. So Amazon, Capital One, Dell Technologies, the Downtown Denver Partnership, and our track sponsor here in the room is Slalom. So we're going to kind of jump right in, but I do want to let you all know that we'll leave about 15 minutes towards the conclusion of our time together for any questions that you all may have for any one of us. And we look forward to kind of talking through everyone's experience here in Denver and growing their businesses. Everyone here is a founder or a co-founder, but I'm going to let them all do their own introduction. So if you want to just tell us a little bit about you, your company, and really where you are, how you would define your own stage of growth right now.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name is Ryan Bourne. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cloud Campaign. Cloud Campaign is a digital platform that's used by marketing agencies to help them essentially scale social media management so they can increase the number of brands they manage and charge a higher retainer with a leaner team. In terms of growth, we are about 30 full-time employees, doing close to $4 million in annual recurring revenue, growing pretty consistently. So I'd say where we're at right now is, we've figured out kind of a repeatable sales process. We've figured out how to get in front of our customers and retain them. And we're looking for that big inflection point. So we're trying to figure out, how do we triple or quadruple revenue every year versus right now we're about doubling revenue year over year.
Hi, I'm Cindy Eby. I'm the founder and CEO of Results Lab, and we work with social good organizations to build a data mindset, skill set, and tool set. So to use data to deepen impact. We are about half the size. We're a 20-person organization, $2 million annual revenue. I would say we're still in a very fast growth pace. Last year, we grew 90%, and we're kind of on the same pace as that, wanting to continue to grow, double in size over the next 2 years. Don't want to do it quite that fast because that's hard.
My name is Vanessa Otero. I'm the founder and CEO of Ad Fontes Media. We rate the news for reliability and bias, and what we're somewhat famous for is the media bias chart, which is a two-dimensional infographic that rates news sources from top to bottom and left to right. If you've seen that on social media over the last 5 years or so, that's us. And our mission is to rate all the news to positively transform society. And our customers are in both the education sector and the media sector, advertisers, publishers, social media companies, basically anyone who touches like news or news-like content and needs to know how reliable or unreliable it is or how like left and right bias it is. A lot of people care about this topic these days. We're a seed stage company, about $500,000 in annual revenue, a little bit more than doubled over last year. And we're in the stage where we've got good early adopters, good early traction, and we're getting close to product market fit. I wouldn't say we're necessarily there yet in certain, especially in certain of our product lines. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Great. My name is Patrick Weber. I'm co-founder of Basecamp Co-Pack here in Denver. We are a small to mid-scale food co-manufacturer. So we help budding food entrepreneurs and food dreamers take their dream from the kitchen into a scalable model. We also work with a lot of large companies that just want to launch product line extensions, new products. We're at a pretty steady to fast stage of growth. We only have about 7 or so employees, depending on projects coming in. But we're about 200% year over year. We're a little bit over about 600,000 in revenue this year, and yeah, the stage we're at is an accumulation of equipment and explosion in space, and from there it's who knows.
So a lot of great year-over-year growth, right? So 90, 50, 50, 200, or no, 50, 90, yeah? So always one of the hallmarks and always one of the challenges, right, in regards to entrepreneurship. So let's talk just a little bit about how did you kind of start that, right? You start with, I'll start with, you start with one set of customers. Sometimes it's your aunt, right? So like, how did you grow beyond that one first set of customers to now have double-digit, triple-digit year-over-year growth?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it really came down to talking to our customers, right? Like once you have a small subset, let's say 10 customers that really love your product, go talk to them and understand why they love the product and what that aha moment is. Because I think sometimes as a founder, like you might be scratching your own itch, you might be solving your own problem, like you understand it from that perspective and you know generally what type of product to build, but you don't necessarily know what's gonna get that audience excited and get them to actually purchase the product. And so for us, it was talking to customers, and there's certain things that we mentioned that were like, oh yeah, this was a simple feature that we built in a week, didn't think too much about it, and the customer said, no, like this is saving me hours, this is huge. And we then incorporate that into our marketing, into our messaging, and put that on, paid social ads and different things like that, email newsletters, and turn that into a more scalable process because that was now the carrot that got folks excited and got them on the phone with us. And then once they're on the phone with us, then we can give them a demo of the product and sell them. And so, for us, it's a matter of having those early conversations and then building that into like more of a repeatable process.
Ditto. I would say very similarly. When we started out, the service and product that my company provides is for a role that I used to play, so I knew it very well and I knew what the need was. But then it was articulating that in a way that resonated for others. So I think it was very much we had a first customer set. It worked well for them, and then it was actually pretty organic growth from there because we had a lot of referrals. We had a lot of inbound based on our current clients because we got the product fit right, and then we're able to articulate it in a way that we could give information to our current clients, and they just spread it around, and we had really good organic growth from there.
I think everybody will say, listen to your customers because that is definitely a driver. I'll also say, I'll add to that, try to ask your question, how big can this be? Like, how can I make it the biggest possible? Especially if you're like looking to raise venture capital. That's the question. Like, how does this scale is like sort of the principal question when you're talking to venture capitalists, and you have to sometimes be able to see beyond what your current product is to what people could want in the future. Like that's the vision part, and it's hard because like people will often tell you like there's pluses and minuses to listening to what your customers say versus what they actually like do. Like really paying attention to what your customers do is key because like one of the best examples when we started, like this company sort of started like with not with a product. But we had this, I created this chart that went viral on the internet. And I was like, wow, there's something there, but I didn't know what it was. And it turns out it's like people want data on news sources and a robust methodology behind that. But that's not, I didn't know that's what they wanted really early on. I was like, well, what are people gonna buy? Like the first thing I put online was a license. Like, did you want to download this for $15? I don't know. But people did. And but then people would ask for more things. Like they'd ask for more news sources, so we'd add those. And they'd ask for like a more robust methodology, so we add that. And those are sort of like features. But then they'd ask for like, oh, it would be really cool if this chart was interactive, so I could search for stuff. And I was like, okay, people keep saying that. I'm going to go raise some money. I'm going to get some software developers, and I'm going to put out this interactive chart. And so I did put it online, and they're like, well, where's the static chart? Like, where's just that image? that's the thing that I want. I'm like, you just told me for like a year that you wanted this interactive thing. They're like, well, yeah, but we want the other thing too. So like, listen to what they say and what they actually do in practice.
Hey, Vanessa, can you just expand a little bit on that first explosion kind of on the internet? Because
Yeah, I mean, I was a patent lawyer practicing in Boulder, and I thought, some people share really bad information and polarizing news content with their friends and family, and some of it's better, and some of it's worse, and some left, and some of it's right, and some of it's like way out there. So visually, I like to talk about this concept with my friends. I'm a big nerd, so I just wanted to. During nights and weekends, I created this. I spent like my hours in the evening, like looking up news sources, placing them on Microsoft Visio because I don't know how to use Photoshop, and put it on the internet. And like millions of people saw it in 24 hours, and people started emailing with their opinions on this mic is with their opinions on like where different news sources should go, and they wanted to teach. They could, maybe it's not the mic. I think it's something else. Because this one's dying too. Yeah, millions of people saw it in a really short period of time. And I literally heard from everybody on the internet about their opinions of where I placed the news sources on the chart, and then it grew from there.
thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, so Basecamp was born out of solving our own problem. And we started as a food brand, and we had a lot of issues trying to figure out our manufacturing. And another co-packer had incidentally almost put us out of business. So we started this for ourselves to solve our own problem. And from there, it just expanded as we had facility, equipment, know-how from all the piles of we stepped in through the years. And we just thought, why don't we do a little of this on the side? See if we can help some other people out, because we had such a hard time doing that. And we were fortunate enough that there's such a high demand, and a lot of the other manufacturers out there are really stubborn and don't want to talk to people. So we didn't have a whole lot of competition, fortunately. So people were coming out of the woodwork to talk to us. So our strategy at the beginning was really simple: say yes to everything and figure it out after that. And so also fortunate that we've had a lot of good clients that we've been able to help scale, grow. Some of them haven't made it, but that's just the nature of things. And, that's really where we came from. Our customer acquisition is all really word of mouth. It's to do a good job. You do right by people, you communicate, and you help people out, and they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell other people. And that's almost 100% of our customer base right now is all through word of mouth.
Awesome. Thanks. So, as with so many great entrepreneurs, right, solving their own problem in a creative way and kind of finding a market as they go. So let's transition just kind of a little bit into like Denver and markets kind of in general. So would you start us off, please, on your origin story of Cloud Campaign and why you're in Denver?
Sure, happy to. So I started Cloud Campaign back in 2017, so it's been a bit of a journey since then. We bootstrapped for the first couple of years, so I got to see that side of things and then raise some VC money after that. But I started the company in San Francisco, so it felt like San Francisco is where startups are built, and that's where a lot of big companies come from. Seems like the place to build a startup. Did that for a couple of years, and then really saw an opportunity to kind of check out the Denver Boulder tech ecosystem. Went through an accelerator program in 2019 that was based in Boulder called Boomtown. Awesome program. Really intended on only coming out for the 3 months for the program. But through that exposure to kind of the tech ecosystem here, met, other kind of folks who have made it, who have started companies, who have exited, and now are kind of lending their time and resources to the community here. And I think that was something that felt really different being here versus being in San Francisco, is it feels very collaborative versus competitive. It feels like everyone's kind of working together to help the ecosystem here rise and get to, a kind of a more robust, more established spot. Versus San Francisco, I feel like it's so established and there's so many other startups there that it's very competitive. everyone's kind of fighting for the same talent. You're fighting for the same VC dollars. You're fighting for the same kind of attention of founders that have exited and have been successful. And yeah, this really just felt like a different kind of environment and a much better place to grow the startup. And so in 2020, moved out here, somehow convinced my wife to tag along and join me. And yeah, we set up an office, raised some money from local investors, and yeah, started to build out the team here. And like I mentioned, we're now 30 employees and have 2 office spaces. So it's been a really awesome journey for us.
Yeah, and Ryan's just back from his honeymoon, so we're happy that he was back to join us today. So, Patrick, do you want to build on that a little bit about, a little bit of your journey and some of the pivots and how the community and some of the resources around you have been instrumental in that?
Sure. So I'm from Colorado originally, from Evergreen, and I told my wife, she's from San Antonio. I said, I was born in Colorado. I'm going to die here. So you're moving out here if we're getting married. Luckily for me, she chose to move out here. But I grew up in the mountains doing, mountain things. We wanted to launch an energy bar. My brother was a sports nutritionist, so we always knew we wanted to just build on that Colorado lifestyle, sell that lifestyle in a product, something that fueled our lifestyle. So for the better part of 7 years, we ran and made energy bars. We sold in places like King Super, Safeway, REI, Natural Grocers. We were all over the place. For a lot of reasons, partnership problems and things like that. We started to, and of course COVID, which sort of put the nail in that coffin. We decided we were going to move on from that. But it presented this, one door closing presented another one opening, and that was to do something we were just passionate about, which was, still making the food and helping other people. And what better place to do that than Denver? Boulder is sort of the natural food, community of the planet. But Denver's got a lot of cool food too. So we really wanted to do something that was close. My partner Jeff grew up here in Denver in Park Hill, so we really wanted to do something in the community where he grew up, where I live now, and somewhere we can hire from within and really lean on the network and resources that Denver provides, which is, to me, second to none. But we're also close to Boulder too, so when we need to sneak up there to pick some natural food brains, we can. So it's been incredible. We've discovered so many great resources and like-minded CEOs and people that are in the same spot that have just been invaluable, and just being a sounding board, having ideas, just letting us know that we're not alone in the fight to grow this business, and there's just no other place like Denver, Colorado to do that. So,
okay, if I jump in, I would just add to that. I think something that really helped my business grow early on here in Denver is I looked everywhere came to Denver Startup Week, sometimes helpful connections there, looked for a business group to join who had other founders in it. And until I found that, so I actually joined Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator, and that connected me with a bunch of other founders and owners. And I don't think my business would be where it is without that. So capitalizing on that local network, and then opportunities like Denver Scale Up Network and what Ben provides as well. I just like seizing those opportunities everywhere and all the time was supremely helpful.
Awesome.
Colorado is big but small, so there's so many talented people here, more people than you could ever meet in a lifetime. But also, it's easy to get to know the folks that are going to be key to your success and your company's success. So I practiced as a lawyer for 6 years. The IP legal community is fairly small. There's 2 law schools in Colorado, and I went to one of them, a DU, and so it was really easy for me to get to know that peer group, and that peer group is connected to a lot of other lawyers generally, which is connected to the startup community of entrepreneurs and VCs and angel investors. And it was not hard to make the leap from one professional circle to others. And even if you don't start off in one of those professional circles, you can get into them quite quickly, right? Groups like Ben, Colorado Thought Leaders Forum, and then like from those, you see, gosh, there's so many different opportunities like Denver Startup Week and Boulder Startup Week and the various accelerators around town. I actually used to present at Boomtown, the accelerator, on IP 101 back when I was a lawyer. So there's all this cross-pollination, and there's also great like city and state support. Like there are grant programs like the Denver Office of Economic Development, super helpful. The state like OEDIT programs with the grant support. I mean, there's really a lot to take advantage of here. It's also like easy to get to know your elected officials, city and state, you can't find that everywhere else. And even though my business, like a lot of media industry folks are like in New York and in LA, we're right in the middle. It's not too far to get out there. Easy to like be a remote first company that grew up in the pandemic and to have people all across all time zones. Like, if you're not convinced about Colorado being amazing, now you are.
There you go. So I'll just add to that. I'm married to a Colorado native. I moved here in 2016. And I think there was one person who didn't agree to meet with me when I moved here. It's a really amazing place. And I get asked all the time about Ben and could Ben grow to other parts of the country? And there are parts of the country that our organization could grow to. There are also parts of the country our organization could not grow to, because of the whole spirit of give first, which is fundamental in this ecosystem and certainly fundamental within the organization that I lead. So let's shift a little bit to markets, because all of you are creating in some way a niche or a brand new market that your company is going to dominate, if doesn't dominate already. Yes. So Vanessa, do you want to start? Because you're creating, obviously the media market is a huge market, but it's changing like all markets do, and you're creating a new part in it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels somewhat presumptuous to say that you're like creating a category, but in a lot of startups do. I mean, we create news ratings, so they're content ratings for news for reliability and bias, and there are other like analysis like labels, content like nutrition labels for food, and like content labels for movies like G, PG, PG-13, like some kind of signal marker that gives you a general sense of like what you're walking into. And we didn't used to need to have these. I mean, in the 60s, you only had like a handful of news sources. And in the 80s, there were like dozens. But then in like the 90s and 2000s, there were like thousands. And now with like social media and smartphones, there's literally tens of thousands of news and news like information sources, which is great. But also there are like downsides to that. So we're creating, news ratings for reliability and bias. And, when this, chart first came out there, I was surprised that there was nothing else like it out there. Like, that's why it was so popular. Teachers would ask to print it in textbooks. And I was like, really? This is literally just my opinion. You shouldn't do that. Like, so it's not academically rigorous. Well, don't. It's biased. So it was a signal that there wasn't something out there like that. And so I was motivated to, to pull on that thread and keep, because I felt like this is clearly something that people need. It is a new category. Now, the challenge is when you're doing something like that, it's not like people don't ask so much about competition. Like, there is competition now, because now people are like, oh, of course we need news ratings, duh. But like when I first did my first pitch, like to my wife, she was like, I would end the pitch, my first ever slide, and I was like, and then people are gonna pay for news ratings. Like, who? Who's gonna pay for news ratings? I was like, I don't know, but one day someone will. And now people do, like large advertisers and like Facebook pay for our news ratings, right? So it's when you find a need like that, just like pulling at that thread and not being deterred by different objections, like we didn't get so many competitor objections, but we would get like, what does your total addressable market look like? And that's a really hard thing to answer for a new category and a new product, right? And it's like if you can't answer it, VCs are like, I don't get it. So, you know, that's I forgot what the original question was, but I kind of liked my answer.
You answered it. Cindy, do you want to talk about your market?
Sure.
Thank you.
My company works in the social sector space, so with nonprofits, and a lot of products and services for nonprofits are actually not for nonprofits. They were built for businesses, and they back into the nonprofit space, and so they're not right. they don't really work. And I have done a lot of work, and my team has done a lot of work in the nonprofit space. So we deeply, like I was saying, as I said before, we kind of deeply understood the problem that we were trying to solve there, and hitting this niche of capturing data. I don't know if anybody knows the nonprofit space, but nonprofits have to demonstrate impact in order to get funding, but they also need that data to do improvement, just like any business does. And so helping them addressing how the information they need, not what some other business says they need. We just really zeroed in on understanding their problem and diving in there. And we get asked, like, who are our competitors? And I always say that we don't really have competitors, but we do. But there's aren't folks that do anything exactly like we do, because we understand the needs so much. So back to how you grow past your first customer base, I think just really honing in on understanding our client, and then we've been able to build from there. So we started in Colorado. We've had a lot of traction in Colorado. We're moving past customer referrals and such to new markets and getting anchor clients in new geographic markets, that because we got it right in Colorado and we know how to talk about what we do, we get traction pretty quickly. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Just to add on to that, I think one thing that's not commonly talked about when we talk about niching down with the product is actually pricing innovation. Right? Like, you can have a comparable product to something that's already in market, but by focusing on a specific segment and setting up the pricing structure that works for them better, you can actually beat out the competition. So like, it's one thing that we do that's a bit different is, like, we work with marketing agencies, and so the way that we price our product is based off the number of clients that the agency manages, not based off of the features they're using or the number of social media accounts they have, or the number of posts they're putting out per month. And simply for that reason, we win 80% of the time against one of the public competitors that we have. Their engineering team is 10 times our size. Their product is a bit more robust than ours is, but it doesn't matter, because at scale, like, we actually have much more competitive pricing, and this competitor can never rework their pricing to work for agencies, just because 90% of the revenue comes from, large businesses in Fortune 1000. And so they'd be actually losing out on potential revenue, just kind of given who they serve and how that's different from the different pricing levers that we have given who we serve.
Patrick, anything to add?
For us as a manufacturer, there we go. There we go. For us as a manufacturer, obviously our market, we see it all from, someone who's taking grandma's recipe for a latte mix and just wants to go see what she can do in the market out there, to someone who's been at the farmer's market, making their stuff for a couple of years. They just have seen that giant hurdle to manufacturing as something they weren't sure they want to do or didn't know how to do. As far as, like I said, we say yes to talking to everybody, and sometimes they're a fit, sometimes they're not. But, we'll always try to help direct somebody in the right direction, and hopefully we can grow with them too if it does work out. For competition, there's other manufacturers, always food manufacturers out there. Like I said earlier, the beauty for us is that, some of our machinery allows us to be, able to pivot from small runs to large runs, so we don't have to tell people no because you need to produce 100,000 units or 200,000, a million, whatever it is. We always tell people, we can make you one bar or one oatmeal. It's going to be probably a pretty expensive bar or an oatmeal, but start somewhere. So that's really, market is so broad, and the competition's out there, but we don't view it as competition.
Awesome. All right, so just two more questions, and then we're going to open it up. But both of you, all of you, really kind of touched on. There's a lot of no's, right? There's a lot of no's. There's always a lot of no's, and there is in every business, but especially in entrepreneurship, and especially in that first customer set and going to the second customer set. So just talk for a minute about handling the no, right? Just handling the no. Vanessa wants to go first.
So my first job out of college, I was pre-med in college. I was an English major too because I like English.
So hold on, let me get this right. So you are a pre-med and then a patent lawyer.
Yes, so I didn't end up being a doctor. Okay, I chose my career. I chose what I wanted to be at 10 years old. I'm like, doctor. And then it was pre-med, but I really liked English. Anyways, my first job out of college was selling Xerox copiers, B2B. And my first job before that, while I was in college, was selling Cutco knives. So if you ever get hit up by your college people in your life to get a demo, best knives ever, take it. You're gonna buy some knives, right? I still have my knives. They're the best. Sold $18,000 in knives that first summer, which is good money when you're making 50% commission on those knives, right? But yeah, it was a lot of no's then. And then for Excel copiers, literally the first day on the first 6 weeks, the requirements for that job were to do 40 door-to-door cold calls, knocking on businesses, 40 of them a day for weeks. And so most of the businesses are no soliciting, right? And get at it. We don't need a copier. Some people, sometimes they call the security and have you escorted out of the building, right? But it's part of your job, and you come home with 3 business cards, and one of them needs a copier, and it's a $50,000 copier, and you make your whole quota for the month, right? So that was really great training for being a founder. And they say that being a founder is sales. It is sales. That's job number one. Founder-led sales really early on, especially if your product is new, a little complicated. You got to figure out that whole process beforehand. Then there's fundraising, which is also a big fat pile of rejection all the time, right? So I did a pitch at Denver Startup Week equity pitch competition last night, and I thought it went pretty well. But I'd done it literally 200 times before, right? So it was again, most of those are no's, but in order to actually raise some money, you just need a handful of yeses. And I think most folks who've successfully raised some money, they'll tell you, yeah, it's 10%, 15, 20% if you're lucky, are the yeses. So we're not really set up in school for failure like that, where you take a test, you're supposed to get an A on all the tests, or a B, at least you're supposed to get 80 to 90% right. That's what we're set up for in our lives. But this job is 90% of the time you're gonna fail. It's worse than batting in baseball. So yeah, if you're 1 for 10, and I when I applied for jobs at a law school, I was great, I'm gonna apply for 100 jobs, get 10 interviews, 3 offers, 1 job, right? And that I had a sales funnel in my head. And a lot of my colleagues were okay, I applied for 1 job, hope I get it. And then 6 weeks later, they're I haven't heard back. I'm only need 1 job, apply for 100. You have to think of it like a sales funnel, and that just helps.
Well, we hope you win. Michael, keep me honest. Last year, we one of the graduates of our partnership program, Orion, with Black Travel Box, won. So 2 for 2. All right. Who wants to go next?
I'll jump on it. Yeah, dealing with failure, I think part of it's building a support network. And we talked a lot about kind of the different support networks that are based here in Colorado, where you can connect with other founders that are going through very similar scenarios, and you can commiserate and drink some beers together and talk about how hard it is to build a startup, right? That helps a lot. I think another thing is just distancing your identity from your startup, which can be hard to do. A lot of people, especially if you've been spending 5 years working on a startup, you start to kind of identify as the startup, right? If the startup doesn't work or you can't raise money, you're shoot, I'm a failure and I'm not successful. That's not really true. You are completely separate. If you've made it to that point of actually taking the leap and starting a company, you've done more than most people. So that's actually an accomplishment in itself. And I think just understanding like what those wins are and those milestones that you are hitting, to use that to energize and fuel yourself to make it through the no's. Because there will be no's, and sometimes it's a no because, especially when it comes to fundraising, someone doesn't understand your market or they don't understand your business. Those no's you need to be able to identify and say, I'm not really going to listen to your feedback because you actually don't understand what we're doing. There's other no's where maybe it's really good feedback and you want to incorporate that into your business, take that as a lesson, and then go back 6 months and say, look, we listened to what you have said and we made changes, and here's where we're at. And sometimes that no is a yes, and it's usually it's a not now. It's usually not a hard no.
I was trying to think like what are the no's that we've experienced, and it's more in that realm. I think understanding when you get a no, is the no accurate or do they not understand? And so I've seen that as an opportunity to refine how we talk about what we do, or understand whether that's the right funder or client for us. And often it actually wasn't the right target client for us after we got some feedback about things. So filtering that feedback and having some thick skin. And this isn't necessarily related to no's, but I felt like for me, I started out in a completely different sector. So like you, I started out as a data analyst who started a company. And so I didn't know how to run a company. So it wasn't necessarily the no's that were challenging, but it's the constant learning about everything that you need to do to operate a business. And back to like seek your network out. And so you have those people to ask questions to and learn from. Like if I didn't have that, there's no way we'd be where we are.
Going into selling a product into retail, no is a word you better just get used to and like. And in fact, we would almost internally say, what is no? No really means yes, right? So we're just going to keep coming back and asking you. And that's how we got into, because we would always get another bar, here we go. And it's like, I know. But you really want to put this bar in there. And so the answer there was just, you're gonna tell us no now, but when we come back and ask you tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and then you're gonna eventually say yes just to stop the questions, and the sales pitches. So that was really our strategy for bars. And I think that's how we got in. There was no one in this earth that's more annoying than my brother, and he was really, really good at that. And there's about 500 buyers out there that would probably back me up on that. But he was really good for that reason, is that no was something that we would forget we heard almost the instant we heard it. And just because the first couple were really hard. Now the hard no's were, tasting bars at a King Soopers and, having someone from an older generation come up and spitting it out in front of you and saying, this is the worst brownie I ever had. And you're like, well, it's not a brownie, it's an energy bar, but I can see where you might be confused on that. But so we had some of that, had people throw bars, had them spit it out. But yeah, you just kind of get used to it. You know that, your thing isn't everybody's thing, and you got to just be okay with that. But you can't give up at one no, and you can't give up at a million no's. You just go, and you just don't stop.
Awesome. Thank you. So Cindy touched on it. So, as you guys are thinking about where you are now, what's the one advice that you would give to the audience who are thinking about or starting up and getting going, right? So that they can get to 90% year-over-year growth, 200% year-over-year growth, creating a market, taking what they see as something that's missing in the world and creating it for all of us.
Two things come to mind for me. One is one's very tactical, and one is less tactical, less tangible. So starting with the latter, I think, and it relates to being okay with no's, is just the nimbleness. Like every step you take, something changes, and just being willing to go with that and find that fun, because it is actually really fun. And so the nimbleness of, learning new things, figuring out your market, figuring out what the hell you're doing, and just going with it. So just getting into that mindset. And the other was really tactical. So When I started my business, I didn't actually know where I wanted to take it, and I didn't actually know if it could be a business. So I started it as an LLC. We now operate as an S corp. If you know where you want to take your business, I'd just say tactically think about what kind of business entity you should be, because now we're fixing some of that given where I want to take the company. So that's more tactical.
Cindy touched on this a couple of times, but I can't emphasize it enough. It's just learning new things. This job requires you to learn new things all the time. So if you're like, oh, I want to start a company, but I don't know X, Y, or Z. I mean, you have so many hats. Like you have to become proficient and like almost the best in your company, like all those things at first. Like you need to know a little legal and HR and finance and product and tech and sales, right? So it's a lot of things. So, but learn it. Like we have so much information available to us, like more than ever before, where you can just literally take a course on it in free time. And then the other thing is you don't give up. Like part of the game is just staying in the game. Like be tenacious. People are gonna not get it, not see what you see, and if you're gonna create something new, if you're gonna like change the world in your own way, you're gonna be doing things that are different from how other people are currently doing them. So like if somebody tells you like, well, here are the challenges, here's why like I don't think this will work, like only take advice from people who have the actual thing that you want, that you're taking advice from, right? So like if somebody has like giving you advice on money, like they should have the amount of money that you want to have. Like if somebody's giving you advice on like health and fitness, they should have the kind of health and fitness that you want, right? And only take advice from the people who have what you want. Those are my top two things.
Yeah, those are really great. I think sticking with that theme of the tactical is, big at Basecamp. We're really big into quotes and Sun Tzu, and he always said, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, then you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And that's really about knowing. In this context, is know yourself, know your business, know the people, your team. Really immerse yourself in that, and then just try to prepare, try to think ahead. And if you know all these enemies and all these problems and hurdles that will come towards you, then you'll know exactly how to respond and when to respond in that moment. And on a personal level, there's always going to be hard days. The one thing I always, when I hit a wall, is I never forget the why. Why am I doing this? Never forget to take time for yourself. And it took going through the cohort last year for me to really accept that it's okay to go to sleep with the checklist unchecked, and because it's never going to be fully checked. So just remember why you're doing it, and that's probably the most important thing for me in our business.
From my perspective, honestly, I think the biggest hurdle to starting a company is yourself. It's feeling like you're not prepared and you don't have all the ducks in a row, and like you don't know what you're going to need to know 6 months from now. And I think the reality is like that's always going to be the case, right? Like we're always learning something new as founders, and you just have to go for it if you want to build a company. And for me, it was the question of, am I going to regret it more if I start this company and I fail in 12 months, or if I look back 10 years from now when I have a lot more responsibility and say, dang, I wish I would have started a company when I was in my 20s, right? Like that was the question I had, and I was like, all right, it doesn't matter if I fail, we're just going to build a company. There's a Tim Ferriss quote, which is, learn things just in time and not just in case. Because if you're constantly trying to say, well, I might need this 3 months from now, I might need this from 6 months from now, and start spending all this time trying to learn things, you might never get started just because you feel like you're never prepared.
So back to my tactical advice. If you're wanting to start a company, you don't know where you want to take it. So back to that advice, just create a company and do it. Like, don't wait and figure out where you want to take the company and decide what entity. Like, it's okay to leap. Leap it like letting go of the vine is that one. Like, I'm right here. I'm going to trust that it's going to work, and I'm going to swing, and I'm going to grab that next one.
Great. Thank you guys so much. We're going to open it up to Q&A. I do have to just share quickly. I got home late last night. I have 8-year-old twin boys, And my husband, I said, how did everything go today? And he said, oh, it was good. He said, you know, one of our sons, when you pick him up, he always has like 100 things he wants to say to you. And he's like, he came running out and he said, Dad, look, I made a business card. Right? And my husband is an aviator. And so my husband was like, well, what are you going to do with it? And I was like, no. Just let him share the business card. He's going to be an entrepreneur. Let him do it now. Right? It was just really great. So anyway, it just felt appropriate to share that. I don't know. But anyway, so we're going to open it up to Q&A. Kelly, do we have, Kelly's going to help us with the mic.
Hello, thank you for all the great insights there. Really curious just on the Denver theme, what your experiences have been with, there goes my phone, what your experiences have been with like resources locally, like venture capital, advisors, customers, those things, versus having to go to some of the, you know, places like San Francisco, New York. How do you recommend we look at that balance?
I'm happy to kick us off. I mean, for us, we've had a lot of success with fundraising and finding advisors that are local that have done what we want to do twice over. One of our advisors has sold 2 software companies now, both for over $1 billion with a B, so super impressive. And it's crazy that like he's willing to roll up his sleeves and spend, you know, a couple hours every week to just kind of come into our office, whiteboard with us, do deep dives, and you know, we're a very small nascent startup compared to what he's accomplished. And I think that's something that could be hard to find in other geographies. I think, again, like it's a kind of give first mentality here. And like the tactical advice is send that email, you know, pick up the phone and call that person, because more likely than not, like they've leaned on others in the Colorado startup scene, and they're happy to do the same and help you out. And specifically on the topic of funding, you know, I think there's a lot of amazing kind of regional investors here that have good sizable funds like up to Series A. I think beyond that, you might want to, you know, consider looking kind of outside the area and see what other partners you can bring in. But we've raised like just under 7 million, and it's all been local here.
I would say like any person in Colorado that I've met in Colorado that I've sent an email to or done a follow-up with to ask a question has responded. I have had people outside of Colorado not respond. So I don't know what that data is. I can't speak to investors. We're bootstrapped so far, and I'm about to step into that space. So I don't know. Maybe we can share stories later.
Yeah, we've only raised about a little under $1 million from like angels and VCs. So don't have as much experience there. We've raised other funding on like through WeFunder, like equity crowdfunding, actually. But that million for pre-seed and seed over the 2 rounds has been primarily from local investors, and like a handful of like referrals from them to other regional, like Arizona. So we haven't, I mean, we're still very early on. We haven't gone to like, New York or San Francisco. I mean, we had some intros there, but there's plenty here. Like the fund sizes for those like seed and Series A are good out here, and the community is really tight. So you can get to know people really well.
So I'll just add very tactically a couple things. So in terms of starting the businesses, right, we have a plethora of accelerators of any type of organization like that will service any of the major industries in Colorado. From a VC, well, let me start with Angel. There are, Rockies Ventures Clubs. There's Denver Angels. There is probably 10 organizations that welcome anybody to pitch when you're starting out in friends and family. When you move up the ladder, right, the number of private equity and VC firms in the state of Colorado is almost doubling every couple of years. So, and as you grow up, as you know, right, they're going to specialize in different things. I met a new one last night who's new to Colorado, who's focused on enablement in e-commerce. That's all he's going to invest in, right? But then you also have like Rally Day and Colorado Impact Fund and Access Venture Partners. So I think there's a really robust, and what's most important is it's growing and evolving as we're seeing with what's happening across the state of Colorado.
I'm actually going to jump on that real quick. So one thing that's, I think, interesting in Colorado is a lot of the angel investors invest locally, but not just in startups, right? Like a lot of them are LPs in VC funds that are around, and an LP is a limited partner for folks that don't know, meaning like VC firms are investing individuals' money, right? And those individuals are fronting that money. And what's good about that is if you get on the good side of the correct LP, they're potentially in 10 different funds, like probably every fund that's investing at your stage in Colorado. And so it's a really easy way to get intros and get, an opportunity to pitch kind of all the big firms if you find the right individual that's an angel investor and LP.
I'll also say thanks to each of you. This has been extremely valuable hearing your stories and perspectives. So thanks. My question is about keeping your sanity. I know that when running a small business or a startup, you're around employees, customers, people all the time. But there's also a loneliness dimension to it as well, where there's intimate things that you can't share with employees or you can't share with customers. And I'd just be curious to hear your perspectives on how you've handled that, or if you've seen that. Do you leverage like a board of directors, a coach, a therapist, or lean heavily on your family? But just would love to hear your perspective on how to handle those times.
Well, I can say you're sitting around about 50 therapists right now, so that's that really is. I'm fortunate enough to have a partner in my business, and so we do get to have some of those moments, but it wasn't always like that. And there are times where the sanity is stretched, and you feel so isolated, but you're also just buried. But it really is, I think, about the community that is around you, that I've found, at least personally for myself, that I can talk to other founders about what they've gone through. The organizations here in Denver, they're all more than willing to have a conversation, and even if it's just a personal, like, you just want to have a simple, hey, let's get a cup of coffee, just want to talk about what's going on at home. I think just about anybody who's an entrepreneur will jump at the chance to have a 5-minute normal conversation. Doesn't involve a P&L or acquisition or something on the brain. So I would just say focus on the community around you, and that's what I've done.
Certainly that, for sure. I would say also put your own oxygen mask on first. So whatever you do to manage yourself, you better do it pretty consistently, whether that's ride a bike or run or meditate or whatever it is for you. For me, it's bike riding, and then I sort of meditate as I ride my bike. If I don't do that, I become an asshole, and that's not good for anyone. And then it's the people. I'm now a member of, there's a membership organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, and I meet with the same group of 7 other founders and business owners every month. And inevitably, I get some great help every month. And it might not be my problem that I'm hearing about. It might be someone else's problem that I'm hearing about that helps me.
So I'm just going to add to what Cindy said. So at Ben, what we do is we create small advisor groups to work with CEOs, scaling CEOs around specific challenges that they want to work with. And in the pandemic, the CEOs came to me and they said, I love my advisors. They're awesome. I want to talk to the people who are living this hell that I'm living today. I want to talk to the people who are making the decision about the PPP loan and the remote work. And I want to talk to them, not just my advisors. And so we created peer groups. We created small peer groups. I said, we'll do it as a trial. 2.5 years later, those peer groups still exist. And so I say to everyone, I don't care if it's my peer group or EO's peer group or CTLF's peer group, but find a peer group. And the other thing that's important about that is that your trajectory in the peer group also changes, because as the business grows, you will need a different peer group, right? And so if you're in a peer group right now where everybody's in a similar stage, that's awesome. But as somebody grows beyond that stage, they need a new set of peers, and that's okay. But all of those resources, therapy, right? Like they're all critically important. But I talk to entrepreneurs all day, every day, and it's always one of the things I leave them with is I don't care whose it is, but find a peer group, because you need to talk to the people who are living through what you're living through, and it can't always be your partner or your spouse, and certainly not your employees. Anything you want to add? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just give yourself the liberty to take time to do things that you like and step away from the business. I think it's difficult to do because you feel like you need to be running a mile a minute to succeed, but like you're gonna burn yourself out and you're not gonna get to the finish line if you don't take breaks and actually, go cycle, go meditate, do things that you need to do. And like the reality is, if you continue to do that as the company grows, it actually builds an awesome company culture, right? Employees want to do the same thing. They don't want to just work 24/7 and get burnt out. And if they see that the leaders are willing to take time to recharge and get in the right headspace, I think it starts to build this culture where everyone feels like that's acceptable and everyone's focused more on output than input.
Hello. And then I'll also add, try to do perspective exercises and like realize how fortunate you are to be in the position or to have the problems you have. And sometimes people have those experiences when like near-death experience or a big like life-changing experience, and so like don't wait for that to happen. Just like like go through the thought exercise, like, all right, what's really important? What are alternative universes I could be living that are like worse than this? I always remember like when I was in law school and like studying for the bar, I tried to not make a habit of like complaining online about studying for the bar. Like, oh my god, studying for the bar is so hard. I'm like, I literally signed up for this. Like, I knew exactly how hard this was going to be, right? And when you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you signed up for this, and there's a certain level of like privilege and opportunity that you have, and other people would love to have the problems that you have. So that perspective exercise helps me.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question.
Thank you. Startup founders have to wear a lot of hats. And then when you get to scale, you get to take hats off. Hopefully. So tell me about a hat you took off that improved your business operations the most.
Marketing, terrible. Yeah. So I've taken off multiple hats. I used to do the consulting that my company does. I don't do that anymore. I used to do marketing. I don't do marketing anymore. I still do some operations, which is my weak spot. But I think you're right, Frank. I know Frank. Hi. So you do have to constantly delegate and know what you can. It's helped me a ton to be able to peel off the things that I'm like, this needs to go to someone else right now, and someone who's going to be better at it. So I think that's a really good point.
I just took a month-long sabbatical, a whole month. No work. That means I took off all the hats successfully, I think. There weren't, business was running smoothly. There weren't really any issues to come back to. But I think the most impactful one for me was HR, like hiring an HR manager. It's something that requires a lot of time. It's very difficult and nuanced as well. And like, it's not a skill that I had when starting the company, but developed out of necessity and felt like I was the defender of our culture, and also want to make sure that, we're building and fostering kind of the right ethos and the right values as a company, and being able to bring someone in that could take that over and do that full time was just a huge kind of weight off my shoulders and allowed me to focus on other parts of the business.
I think my partner and I think had been able to take off the need to be in the production rooms all the time hats, which is nice. That sort of allows us to work on the business a little more than just working in the business. And but right now we're still wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to focus on like what hats do you want to take off last? Like, what are the the things that you're like best at and love to do in the business, and you keep you to a certain extent always have those. Like, I love our product, and I love like, sales and business development. So even though I have other folks, like I have 2 new sales people on my team for the first time in the last 3 months. It's sales is like. It's probably like the last hat you want to take off as a founder. All the other stuff, like people are super capable around you, like letting them run with social media marketing, letting them run with like developing policies for HR. I mean, people are talented if you let them step up. So whatever you like, people express interest, like in a small company, you can have like a role, like a responsibility creep. And that can be a good thing. People can really step into and take responsibility for an area that they're strong at. I recommend letting them run with that and like picking their hat.
Awesome. So thank you all. Thanks to our panel for joining us and sharing all your insights with us, and for being a part of the Denver Scale Up Network with the Denver Office of Economic Development and the Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network. It's an honor to work with each of you each and every day. And thank you to our audience for joining us. I think many of us will be here around a little bit. And thank you to Denver Startup Week for convening and getting us all here together. Have a great day.
Really quickly, Michael Bibas is here. So all 4 of these CEOs were part of the Denver Scale Up Network program, which gets to work with Ben, Dito, and with CTLF. So if you're interested in the program, please talk to Michael. He just raised his hand. Thank you.